I don't want someone paying me to not get the best value or feel like they're getting the best value for what we're giving them. And whenever that starts to feel like we're getting some of that pushback where they're like, yeah, I'm not getting what I want, I need to get to the point where I am having that hard conversation right away. Before it's a hard conversation, it's one of those things that it should be just part of business. Hey, am I still bringing you value? Do you still value what we're doing for you? Can we be doing more? What does that look like? Hi, and welcome to another episode of Accounting with Confidence. I'm Beth Whitworth, your host, and today I'm coming to you from a very different location. I typically don't try to procrastinate things so long that I have to do them on vacation, but I am on vacation. And so if you can see behind me, I am in northern Georgia, and that's the Blue Ridge Mountains, and I'm here on a girls' trip. And I am also pretty interested in keeping my streak going of getting a podcast episode out every week. So I thought, well, I'm just going to take the time. I have one outlined, and I'm just going to sit out here in this beautiful setting and talk about what I'm going to talk about this week. So this week we're talking about realigning with your client base. So what I mean by that is, there are times in any business when your business has changed. Maybe you've started to add new services. Maybe you've decided to eliminate services. Maybe you have changed the size of your team. There's all kinds of things that can change inside your business that can impact the ability for your client to remain the right fit. And at times, it means you need to review that and realign with them. So if you've listened to me before, you've heard me talk about having a pretty thorough customer vetting process so that you are kind of ensuring that you have the right fit from the time you first meet. And that is not something I had in place my entire career. There are definitely times in your career and in the kind of life of your business where you feel like you need to take whatever clients are interested in your services, whether or not they're going to be a long-term fit. And as you grow and you get more processes and develop your niche and what an ideal client is for you, you reassess that. And I really feel like you need to reassess that on a fairly regular basis. Because there's definitely things that if you don't reassess can be harmful to your business. So a lot of reasons why people aren't interested in getting rid of clients is that it's counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive because you feel like, okay, I'm trying to grow my business, but I am going to get rid of a client. And that's revenue. So why would I want to do that? Well, sometimes you're not making as much money with that client, or maybe it's not a good fit because the client doesn't want to grow with you as your services grow, etc. Another reason why people don't really want to work on realigning their clients is that fear of that hard conversation. I am definitely one who has a personality trait that is an avoider of difficult conversations. And that is something that you have to overcome in order to build this into your business. And then, of course, there's that fear factor just in general. Are they not going to like me? Are they going to be mad? That is part of my procrastination of hard conversations is the emotional reaction to it. And so like I said, I'm kind of an avoider. And the other thing is, okay, we've always been told that, or learned, or, I'm sure you've heard, it's easier to sell more services to an existing client and grow with that client than it is to onboard a new client. And I followed that premise for a very, very, very long time. And what happens though is if that's your main motive, that is how you are going to grow, and the clients that you have are not participating in that growth, then you're really not getting anywhere. So we've also, along with our vetting process before we get new clients now, we also have an onboarding process so that it is not so costly, and it doesn't take as much time to get someone fully onboarded with us. And so we can kind of negate that entire premise of it's easier to sell to an existing than it is to a new. And there are some, I'm not saying that you can't sell anything to your existing clients, but when you are starting to try to move things along with a client and you see that there's room for them to, if they would use additional services from you and they're resistant, they just want to stay in the same place, that is a good sign that it's time to move on. Whether it's you helping them find another accountant or not, or just saying, hey, we don't have the ability to serve this client. And that is what has made me be very cognizant of having to do this on a routine basis, because by not doing it, it's hurting my business. You should be evaluating your clients and your customer base on a regular basis. 1, is there something more you can do for them? 2, is what you're doing for them helping them? Is it a value to them anymore? 3, are they someone that's doesn't fit into your tech stack anymore, doesn't want to participate with your online portal, or will never get, they are continuing to send you documents by email when you say, no, that's not secure, we don't want to do it that way. Maybe, they don't want to sign things electronically, or they want a paper copy of things in your paperless. All of those things lead you to needing to look at, is this still a good fit? So I'm going to grab my notes here, see what else I wrote down. I wrote down, hey, let's talk about lessons learned. So like I said, I am the avoider of hard conversations and have really felt that getting rid of clients for a very long time was counterintuitive to growing my business. And I couldn't see the value between getting rid of that client and really saving my sanity. So I had learned some hard lessons. I definitely learned some hard lessons. One of them is kind of not relating to letting someone go, but it's more relating to always trusting your gut. So I have always felt like I had a fairly good judge of character and fit with people, but there have been times in my business where I have gone against that because, it is something that we can do. We do have the capacity to do it, and the price was right. But it didn't feel, there was something in my gut that said, this might not be okay. But maybe I was in a situation where I felt like I needed to increase the revenue. I needed to just keep building my client base, and I didn't trust that. And almost every time that came back to bite me, whether it was within, less than a year or whether it was in 10 years, at some point, it definitely came back to bite me. The other lessons I've learned around kind of managing your client base is I started out, I did not have clear boundaries, not clear boundaries for my availability, not clear boundaries for, when work was going to get done. And that would lead into people, in particular, I have one particular client that felt like everything was urgent. I kid you not, every subject line of email didn't say anything other than urgent in all capital letters. Every one. So every single thing they had to ever address with us, they considered urgent. And I'm known for saying, hey, nobody dies in accounting. And so there are no emergencies. Accounting does not generate emergencies. But this particular client absolutely thought everything was urgent. We should always drop everything to take care of them. And did not respect the fact that I would have vacations, expected answers in very, very short term. Like if you didn't respond to that urgent email within 2 hours, they were calling. Well, I have an urgent question. And like I said, never an emergency in accounting. These were not urgent. They were not sitting at the bank and the loan director deciding whether or not they were going to get a loan based on an answer that I could or could not give them. It was never an emergency. And it became very difficult with them because you couldn't search your email and see any topic because, every subject line said urgent. I knew it was not going to be a good fit. And I did avoid that hard conversation with this client as well. And what ultimately happened is that I told them that, we were no longer going to work with them. And this client said, "You can't do that." I said, "What do you mean I can't do that?" Didn't have a contract in place that said I couldn't do it. They just said we couldn't do it because they didn't want me to let them go. They didn't want to have to go find somebody else. And they were trying to control what I could and couldn't do inside of my own business and who I worked with. And so I did not have good, clear boundaries at that point. And I made some mistakes in waiting to have that conversation. Good signs are if your team is frustrated with a client, whether it's not getting the communication they need from the client or getting the client not respecting their boundaries, and you're hearing about that. What I have learned is it's better to address it, see if this is a good time to realign the client with either a different member of the team or they need to be realigned to a different firm. They need to be rehomed, and it's okay. It's okay. I found through the years that some of the biggest reasons why you need to do it, other than, like I said, the client's not valuing your services anymore. If you are continuing to get pushback on price sensitivity with your clients, where they say things like, "Well, I just want the minimum service I can have with you for, the minimum amount of dollars that I can have that for." And really what that is implying is they don't value the knowledge and experience that you bring, but they need somebody to do their compliance work. So if that's what you do, great. Figure out how to make that work. We have really moved forward into a situation where we don't want to do just compliance work. We don't want to do just your tax return, because there are places that they could get it done for less money with that expectation of, people are going to answer them quickly, or they're going to sit there while they wait and get their return done, which is not how we work. And it's one of those things where some of the clients are like, "Yeah, I don't want to increase my services with you. I just want the minimum, or I want to cut back my services so that they're only getting the minimum." And that's a price sensitivity. And I get that right now. Absolutely get that. I mean, it is, we are in an economic situation where everything is costing more. And that is something that people, if they value you for the professional work that you're doing, your experience, your knowledge, your attitude, whatever it is that they value about you, they should be willing to pay you for that. And just because the rest of the world, the entire world, prices are going up, when your prices have to go up, as a cost of living, and the people who value you will stick with you, because it's an unfortunate fact of life. You have to figure out how to afford the things that you value. So when someone gets super price sensitive, and that seems to be a recurring theme with them, I tend to know that it's time to rehome them. And that's never a comfortable conversation, but it's something that needs to happen. And I mentioned the other two relating to maybe they don't fit into your firm model anymore. If you've been around a long time, I came from a world of paper files, lots of printing and copying, file drawers, and we don't have any of that anymore. So it's been a complete change, like 180. We don't do that anymore. we do still have people who want to drop off their tax information. And I'm okay with that. If it's a good client who is committed to, the value that we bring, we do have a method for that to work, but they're going to sign their return electronically. We're not going to do paper signing because that is not something that we do anymore. But we do have the ability for them to still drop that off. But if it's a client who just has that expectation that they can just come into the office, we don't have that. We're 100% remote, including me. So there's not necessarily someone that they could talk to about their tax return. And people who want that have needed to move on because we don't do that anymore. It doesn't fit our model anymore. So we have spent some time realigning with clients in that way. And then, of course, the tech stack is constantly one. Now, another one is that it's kind of a trigger for me to consider, do we need to do something as far as, changing how we work with someone or stop working with someone, is when they kind of ghost us. You're trying and you're trying and you're trying to get their work done, the work that they're paying you for and the work that they've signed up and said they want, but you can't get all the information. You can't get a question answered. You just can't get anything done. And it's frustrating for us as the one trying to fulfill this, engagement to not be able to get it done. So things are overdue. We are not being able to bring what we value, which is giving someone timely and accurate financial information so that they can make better business decisions. That's it's part of our mission. And it is frustrating to me and to our team if we can't do that. Now, so it's frustrating to have to be chasing someone for something. For me, it's frustrating because those same types of clients sometimes will say, all of a sudden, they need something in a hurry. And we've been asking for information for weeks or months. And suddenly it's like, well, we would have had this already done for you if we would have received information on time. And it's something we struggle with in all accounting and bookkeeping firms. I do feel struggle with this. So for me, it's not a blanket reason to just say, yeah, we can't work with you anymore. But if it's chronic, where we are feeling like, okay, we've tried to get your work done. You need the work done but you're not prioritizing getting us information. Sometimes that has to be a hard conversation. And we will work very hard with our clients to try to kind of realign them in a way of being able to say, okay, let's figure out how we can get this information more timely. Can you give us a login? Can we have a shared Google Drive? Can we do something where we are getting it more timely and we can take something off their plate so that they don't have to get something to us, but we're getting it ourselves? Sometimes that's all the alignment needs to be. It's not necessarily we're not going to work with you. It's we need to address the process and we need to do it now. And if we don't do it, maybe then we need to make a change. But it is very difficult for me to sign up clients and then not be able to get their work done and not be able to get their work done on time. It's frustrating for me. I feel very much like what I could be doing for them it's not working because they're not getting things that they need. So, anyway, all that being said is, realigning your clients is not necessarily just saying, I don't want to work with you anymore. Just not. Sometimes it's realigning your clients to say, we don't think this is working as well as it could be. And here's what I think we need to do. Let's work towards it. Maybe we put a 30, 60, 90-day plan in place to try to figure out how we can make this a better process. And then maybe we're looking and saying, okay, we still can't get it. Maybe we do need to think about, going our separate ways. Now, attrition in business it's a fact of life. People die, people move, people close their businesses, people sell their businesses. So there's always something that you need to be on the lookout to have your pipeline full. And I would say, if you're constantly having a process in place where you can cull the current client base, it brings you capacity to vet a good fit client and bring them on board. So if you are keeping your clients all at the same, regardless, you're never getting rid of anybody, you still will have people who are going to be gone. And so you need to have that pipeline in place, keeping your referral systems, in good working order. I work with a lot of financial planners. I go to a lot of chamber events. I do things to keep us front of mind for people, but I also make sure that those referral sources know what a good fit client is for us. The other part of keeping those referral sources open is when you do need to make a change with a client and find someone who's a better fit for them, you have some people, some resources you can go to and say, hey, I have a client who needs this. And, they need it, maybe they need a different type of, maybe they need an in-office, they don't work well remotely. Okay. So I can reach out to those people and they can help me find places to send them. For me, I tend to review right after tax season when things are fresh in our mind. Things that were difficult to get done during tax season, is there a reason? Did we not have enough touches during the year to make the tax return process easy enough? And if we didn't, is it because they don't want to commit to a higher level of service? Maybe we need to be looking at their stuff monthly and they only wanted us to look at it semi-annually because of the cost. Well, if that then turns into a tax return that we can't get done on time or without a whole lot of cleanup work, then we need to say, okay, let's talk to them. Let's realign our services. And if we can't come to an agreement, we help transition them to a new accountant. Now, I talked a lot about how I avoid those hard conversations. It's like this for every area of my life. But I have learned over the years kind of some language that I tend to use, and it is true. I mean, it is from my heart. And one of those is, we know, like if you're having that conversation with your client and you're like, okay, they're not a good fit anymore, I need to do something about it. I will say something along the lines of, we no longer feel that our services are bringing you value. And that's true. I mean, like I said, I can't stand it when someone has hired me to do something and we can't get it done because we can't get the information, or we're continuing to have coaching calls or quarterly financial meetings and they want information from us, but then, they don't use it, or they don't see the value of trying to use it, or have a bazillion excuses of why that just won't work for them because, they're a special butterfly or snowflake or whatever you call that. So I tend to use that language. We no longer feel that our services are bringing you value. And that's true. The other language that I tend to use is that our firm's availability doesn't fit with your needs. So when we are running into issues with someone, so we run a 100% part-time firm. So everybody is part-time. There's not somebody answering the phone from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. 5 days a week. It's not how we work. The majority of my people work 5 to 6 hours a day. And so if there's a client who is constantly saying, well, I can't get a hold of Nicole, I can't get a hold of Sarah, I can't get a hold of Beth. Well, there are ways to get a hold of us. There are ways to schedule meetings with us. You can leave a voicemail. You can do all those things. But if that seems to be the big sticking point, then it is definitely a situation where we're not going to change our availability. This is how we built the firm, and we have lots of clients that have no problem with it. So when we get someone who kind of doesn't like to communicate in the same ways that we do, maybe we send them an email and they pick up the phone. Well, you're not always going to get us because everybody's not always sitting at their desk, and they're definitely not sitting at their desk from 8 to 5. So using the language of our firm's availability doesn't fit with your needs is a good indicator for us to be able to say, so you need to find someone who is. Maybe you do need to find someone who is there 9 to 5 or whatever, so that you can always have phone access. And another language that I have used is that, and I'll just read this one, our capacity to serve your account has changed and we need to make hard choices. And I have used that in the sense that we always have staffing or team changes, and we are always trying to elevate our team to do more with their clients. And as we're finding this, we can't always keep everybody. So maybe there's an account that doesn't really meet our standardized processes. They're doing things differently than anybody else. Maybe they have a different way that they process payroll. Maybe they have something where we are not having quarterly meetings, and that's now kind of almost a requirement. Whatever it is, it comes a time as we are continuing to grow and add clients that we have to look at our client base and say, okay, well, we need to keep this client, but this client they're not a good fit for our current capacity, because we are also trying to keep our team lean and part-time. And so not being able to do that because of, just processes that we have not been able to help them standardize is something that we can then say, okay, our team just doesn't have the capacity to manage you. Same thing happens when a client that we don't really work with that much suddenly is like, oh, hey, I've added, 2 or 3 businesses or decided to buy a rental property, and their work becomes more than we have available for the team at that time. Maybe they need to go somewhere else, take all of that book of business and find someone who can handle all of it, because nobody wants to piecemeal their accounting for the most part. And I don't blame them, because I don't want to piecemeal it either. But yeah, there's capacity issues and especially during this kind of still little strange and difficult hiring time, that can be one of those things where you say, okay, do we really have the capacity to continue to handle this account this way? And what would it take to get that client into a standardized process? And would they be willing to do it? And so it's, again, back to those hard conversations. So I spend a lot of time kind of considering what more we can do for our clients, what kind of additional clients we want to work with, and what is best for the clients that we have. Are we serving them the best that we can? Because I don't want someone paying me to not get the best value or feel like they're getting the best value for what we're giving them. And whenever that starts to feel like we're getting some of that pushback where they're like, yeah, I'm not getting what I want, I need to get to the point where I am having that hard conversation right away before it's a hard conversation, so it's one of those things that it should be just part of business. Hey, am I still bringing you value? Do you still value what we're doing for you? Can we be doing more? Do you, what does that look like? So it's all, not a super fun topic to talk about while I'm on vacation, but it is the one I had ready to go. So I'm going ahead and getting it done. But really, it's one of those things where I feel like it's been on my list to talk about for a very long time, because we have been, I guess I would say we've been very conscientious about trying to make these changes so that it's easier to streamline our processes, to get the clients that are absolutely kind of anomalies, to have fewer of those. Because the more clients that we have that don't fit into things that we're really good at, the more time it takes. More time it takes from me, more time it takes from management of the client. And so keeping an eye on that and being very conscientious about looking at the list and saying, okay, what do we really have capacity for in order to maintain the type of firm we want to have, which is, kind of a work and family balance, and work and family first type thing, as well as part-time. I don't want people to feel like they have to work a whole bunch of extra hours, even during tax season. So we think about that a lot, and as far as making sure that we're in line with our capacity. And we have to look at client load and what is working and what is not working in order to do that. So anyway, so this girls trip here, I'm here with some friends of mine from college. We went to the same university together many moons ago. This is our second annual girls trip. This is only been the last 2 years since all of our kids had gotten at least to college before we had started doing these trips, and having a blast, absolutely having a blast. So thrilled to have Lisa and Sarah here with me, and they're giving me some time to just get this recorded because, they're holding me accountable to keeping my streak going, to getting episodes published every week. So even though this isn't maybe not the most exciting of topics to talk about while I'm enjoying my vacation, it is something that I think is important. So, all right, everybody, there's a link underneath where you're watching this that says send Beth a text. I would love it if you send me a text. Send me a text and tell me, do you do this? Do you kind of look at your client list? And if you do, what do you struggle with the most? Are you like me, avoid the hard conversations? Or are you I need all the revenue, I can't afford to let somebody move on? What is it? I would love to hear. Text me. Send Beth a text, just wherever you're listening to this, or put it in the comments, and if you're watching on YouTube, and let me know. And then also, if you can follow and like me wherever you're watching, or if you see one of my little shorts or my reels, give it a thumbs up, or follow me wherever you're seeing those. I would love it, whether that's LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube. I'm still new to all of this, trying to get people to see my stuff more. And so I would love it if you would do that for me. Okay, everybody, that's all I've got today. It is getting to be dinner time, so I'm going to wrap it up. And remember that I'm here to help you, to empower you to build a business that you love. All right, everybody, see you next week.